Merhaba, Merve Hickok. Bugün Future of Work zirvesinin bir parçası olmak çok keyifli. Bundan sonra bütün seansları ve bütün webinarları böyle güzel bir caz müzikle başlamayı umuyorum. Sunum sonrası sorularınızı bekliyorum. Bir saniyenizi rica edeceğim ekranı paylaşırken. Umarım görüyorsunuzdur.
Görüyoruz.
Teşekkürler. O zaman ben başlayayım. For the future of, for the benefit of everyone in the audience, I'll continue my presentation and Q&A in English. My name is Merve Hickok. I'm the founder of AI Ethicist and Lighthouse Career Consulting. I'm a researcher, consultant, trainer on ethical and responsible AI. I also teach at University of Michigan here in Ann Arbor for data ethics and senior research director at Center for AI and Digital Policy. However, in a previous life, I have more than 15 years of experience in the corporate world. I used to be the country HR manager for Merrill Lynch in Turkey, and then moved to London to take over some EMEA and global level roles across diversity recruitment, marketing, and recruitment and compensation consultancy. But without further ado, let me move on to the content of the day. So HR leaders and businesses have been deploying AI systems in various functions across HR in an effort to combine human expertise, AI speed, and scale for a better future and business results to achieve objectives, drive efficiency, and optimize performance. But as we reimagine HR, are we building this in an effective, inclusive, accessible, and non-discriminatory ways? Can our algorithms be trusted? Or are we buying into the hype and snake oil? For the benefit of time today, I'll discuss and focus on AI systems used in recruitment. However, I'm always happy to expand the conversation to different functions, as well as future of labor topics as needed. I just want to provide the landscape of AI systems in different HR functions with this slide. In a research in 2017, and it still holds true today, that's what I'm sharing, LinkedIn's CEO Jeff Weiner predicted that most important trends in impacting the future of work are AI automation, skill gaps, and rise of independent work. A lot of the topics that are being discussed throughout this week at Future of Work Summit. With regards to the AI and automation, they mapped tasks involved in recruitment activity against automation potential from high to low in the y-axis, and the value added with human touch in the x-axis, and the value added with human touch in the y-axis. So the bottom left quadrant that I marked shows those activities that add little incremental value with human touch. In other words, what functions or tasks should be expected to deploy AI systems first. This mapping more or less has held true since this research, although I would say that the quadrant has expanded to include marketing too over the years. So when we look at AI and HR functions, the idea here is how to speed up and streamline processes, remove routine tasks from human recruiters. How do we broaden the talent funnel, those who want to reach for job opportunities, how to meet the changing needs and requirements quickly, reduce time and cost of hire, apply the rules and criteria consistently to all candidates, and therefore hopefully remove the human bias in selection. And also use AI and big data to better analyze the gaps and the imbalances that might be existing inside your organization. So in other words, better, faster, cheaper. I'll explain if this is in fact the case. Can AI be an answer to all of your questions? So every few days, if you're in this space, a new AI vendor surfaces claiming to do the previously undoable, solving problems previously unsolved. In a very, very few of these cases, this is true. However, more often than not, the AI systems being deployed causes more issues. This might be because the organizational problem was not deeply analyzed in the first place, or due diligence was not properly handled, necessary data is not available, or human talent to implement AI systems is not fully trained. or that the decision makers in bringing the AI system do not have the knowledge necessary to assess the capabilities and impacts of AI, which results in higher expectations, lower investments in governance and risk monitoring. In a recent survey from SHRM, Society for HR Management, 74% of chief talent officers feel that they do not have the knowledge necessary to assess the capabilities and impacts of AI. Nevertheless, AI systems are making their way into these organizations. I provide consultancy and advisory to C-suite and board members in different organizations across different industry. And I can comfortably say that this percentage, unfortunately, does not change or is not any better for other C-level functions in other industries. So let me briefly walk us through the AI systems in the recruitment funnel. I'll start from the top. However, if you would like to read more, if you want a more detailed account across the stages, you can also refer to my article mentioned here. So let's start from the top of the funnel. If you're looking to fill a job position, the first step is to advertise the job and target possible candidates. The recruiter posts the job on social media and career platforms. The recruiter can select specific criteria to target the ideal audience. Let's set aside the human bias that goes into selecting those criteria for a second. These platforms will then use a black box algorithm to combine these preferences and publish the results. As a result, as a recruiter, you don't get to confirm if the results actually match your request. Furthermore, say you built this, you posted it in Career Builder or ZipRecruiter, etc., and those job boards decide to push the postings to a search engine or social media. These platforms have their own algorithms running in the background and decide on how to post a job, which are known to be the next layer of bias. Today, employers have access to the same micro-targeting, behavioral targeting data and capabilities, just like the advertisers do. How and where employers choose to use these tools plays an important role in determining the overall demographics of who learns about job postings and who ultimately applies. Many ad networks use the data that is both provided by users and inferred from their online activity. The data is used to automatically generate groups of users with certain shared attributes that the recruiters can then use to target or exclude for these ads. So platforms like Facebook and Google decide which ads are ultimately shown to whom, not based on what you're paying as the advertisers or the recruiter, but actually on the platform's own prediction of how likely a user is to engage with the ad, hence that second level of bias. So in 2008, Facebook faced a lawsuit which alleged the social platform's practice of allowing job advertisers or recruiters to consciously target online users by selecting the gender, race, zip code criteria as an evidence of intentional discrimination. Facebook also offers a tool called lookalike audience. If you're a recruiter or a marketer, you might know about this tool, where an employer provides Facebook data on its current employees. Facebook then analyzes the data and identifies other users who have similar profiles and targets those ads to the lookalike group to help employers predict which users are most like their current employees, and henceforth, hopefully, more likely to apply for those jobs. This kind of lookalike interaction is endemic of many other algorithms. TikTok, for example, although it's not a recruitment system, you get the idea. The algorithm actually adopts the recommendability on gender, ethnicity, skin color, hairstyle, body profile, age, how dressed the person is, even if they have any visible disabilities, and then suggests or recommends people that look like those audience. A more job-related research has been conducted a few years back on Google's algorithms. So researchers from Carnegie Mellon built an automated test rig called AdFisher. where they pretend to be a series of male and female job seekers. What they've done is they created 17,000 profiles that only visited job seeker sites, job boards. So it wasn't biased through other online activity, online search activity. And these profiles were shown 600,000 adverts, which the Carnegie Mellon team then tracked and analyzed. One of their experiments showed that Google displayed adverts for career coaching service for high-paying executive jobs 6 times more frequently to the male group than the female group. So think of this next layer of biased algorithms that decide on who gets to see a job advertisement, who gets to know even that there's an opportunity to start with before we can even go down the next level of funnel. So let's move on to the next stage in the process, matching. So you're done with your targeting and advertisement. You're now starting to match, and this is where the recruiter starts using the matching software and sees who has applied and where they sit in the application. When predictions, numerical scores, or rankings are presented as precise and objective, recruiters may give them more weight than they truly deserve, more objectivity than a vendor intended. So the design of these systems also introduce bias by the choice of the architecture. As a recruiter, when you're looking at the screen, as you're going through your applicants, you might be tempted to think that 98% match is better than 95% match, without actually understanding what that means, how the algorithm is calculating it, and how it actually relates to the requirements of your particular job post. But also these algorithms learn and adapt to behavior as well. So it's not only what you're seeing on the screen, but over time, as the candidates and the recruiters interact with these systems, the algorithm itself, the machine learning behind it, adapts and changes the behavior as well. So for example, with content-based filtering, it reinforces the user's own prior and cognitive biases. So if you're a candidate applying to lower paying jobs, the algorithm over time starts recommending similar jobs to you. So you don't get to see more senior jobs or more better paying jobs. Again, so this is true for the recruiters. If they keep looking for candidates with a radius around the office or from certain competitors, even without their knowledge, the machine will learn the preferences and set them as default settings. So you might think that you're looking at all the candidates possible, but actually that machine learning has adapted the behavior and it is already giving you a filtered view of the candidates or a filtered candidate pool. Let's say, moving on to the next stage, that you match some candidates and you want to start assessing them. A number of AI systems in the market today claim to analyze the physical traits of face and make a judgment about a person's innate character, personality, computer vision and machine learning technology can profile people and reveal their personality based on their facial image, claiming that they can tell if a person has a high IQ or is more likely to be an academic researcher or a terrorist. For today, I will constrain myself from going in a deep dive argument here, how the systems in history have been used to justify practices of slavery, eugenics, hierarchies of humankind, and imposition of power and oppression over whole groups. For today, just suffice it to say that these applications do not have any scientific basis or validity. So if you're a decision maker and have been approached for facial analysis, biometric categorization, or emotion analysis systems that suggest that they can predict good and future candidates, my suggestion is please stay away from these systems. However, there's also the facial identification and recognition side of these systems. For example, if you're using these systems to identify or recognize a person on camera, not necessarily analyzing the characteristics, but to confirm that someone you see on an interview screen matches the information, or for example, the person looking at the camera is not engaged with someone else in the room, then a different kind of bias enters the picture. If you're familiar with AI and bias, you might know this seminal study of gender shades by Dr. Blomvini, Dr. Gebru, and Deb Raji, who revealed that they looked at 1,270 faces to reveal that IBM, Microsoft, and Face++, who are some of the biggest facial recognition systems in the market, were better at guessing the gender of male faces than female faces, and especially struggled on darker female faces. So whereas the system could identify a lighter skinned Caucasian male with 100% accuracy, if you had darker skin, or even worse, if you're a darker skinned female, the accuracy rate dropped to 69%. The results of this work forced the companies to invest more in diverse data sets. However, the problem is still there, and in these systems, as well as the derivative facial recognition systems that some of the vendors are embedding in their systems. And the same researchers also conducted another audit using Black Panther movie. Some of you might have seen it. So the movie centers a cast of dark-skinned men and women to see how well artificial intelligence software from IBM, Face++, Microsoft, Kairos, and Clarify detected the faces and predicted the age, gender, and race of the main characters of the movie. As you can see on the right side, some of these, in certain cases, some of these systems didn't even identify that there was a person in the picture, let alone identify their gender or age or race, etc. So imagine this, we're talking about recruitment today. Imagine this as you're applying for a job, or if you're using these systems to confirm that you're an actual employee who's about to start their work shift in a day, and the algorithm doesn't allow you to confirm, or the algorithm doesn't even recognize you to start a job interview. The problem gets even worse when the systems are used, when these bias systems are used for policing, law enforcement, or autonomous vehicles, etc. But that's outside of our conversation today. And then there are a number of assessment tools that parse videos using machine learning, extracting signals like vocal indications, enthusiasm, word choice, word complexity, topics discussed, or word groupings, etc. It uses the signals to create a model that claims to capture the relationship between the interview responses and workplace performance based on the employer's pre-existing metrics. However, again, just like facial recognition, the speech recognition softwares usually perform poorly, especially for people with regional accents or non-native accents, those with disabilities, and those for whom the interview language is not a native tongue. So if you're Turkish and English is not your native tongue, and you're applying for a position in a multinational organization, or if you're applying for a job abroad, you might be going through this interview in English. Not only the accent will drop your rating, but also the fact that you might not be using words complex enough, or your choice of words are not complex enough throughout these interviews, the analysis result will be biased, regardless what your education, what your experience, and what you can bring to that job. And let's say you've gone through the analysis section, and you finally identified a few candidates and want to make an offer. A number of vendors, AI vendors today, now provide social media background scoring. This is illegal in certain jurisdictions, but there are some loopholes in other jurisdictions. So what these vendors do is actually crawl through a person's social media accounts and suggest a score to the employers. So they might think that, they might say, okay, this is a dangerous candidate, this is a bad candidate, this is a very bad candidate, or it's like, okay, this is you're good to go. You can make an offer to this candidate. What's wrong with these systems is they presume that a person's online behavior is relevant to their professional activities. So there is no distinction between what you say personally, what you say or what you do professionally at work. It thinks that everything is one, which might also have an effect on your freedom of expression. You might start filtering your comments online. You might start not making any stands on social, political, economic, or even other subjects online, because you know that this is going to come back and hurt you with your job applications. They also, natural language processing, again, also have limited ability to parse the nuanced meaning of human communication. It doesn't detect, it reads the sentence, it hears the sentence, it makes certain analysis depending on what's built on the model, but it doesn't actually detect the intent or the motivation of the speaker. Also, background checks could surface details about the applicant's race, sexual identity, disability, pregnancy, health status, etc., which employers shouldn't be considering during the hiring process. And again, in certain jurisdictions, it's illegal to consider these criteria before you make an offer to the candidate. These type of judgments are not different if you're using these algorithmic systems to track and surveil the current employees. So not only the applicants to your company, but your current employee activity. Employee surveillance is again a conversation for another day. Happy to answer questions, but they're not different on how they impact the candidates or the current employees. I want to go back to across all these systems, though. I want to put some particular attention to those with disabilities. It's an issue, it's a topic close to my heart, close to my research as well. So what happens if you have a disability? Currently, 1 billion people, or 15% of the world's population, experience some sort of disability. And in the disability justice or disability rights world, there's a saying that if you think you are not without disability, it's temporary, you're just temporarily abled. So a sickness, God forbid, a sickness, an accident, etc., at any given day, you might become one of this 15%. So not only for advocacy reasons, not only for equality and justice reasons, but also for a future impact, we need to pay extra attention to how the systems treat those with disabilities. So the models, AI models, usually treat the underrepresented traits as undesired traits that receive less rating. So if, for example, you are represented, if people with disabilities are represented less in the data sets that these models are built upon, they will receive less rating. So people with disabilities, like other marginalized groups that are underrepresented, risk being excluded as a matter of course, just with the nature of the algorithm. So, for example, with face, these algorithms or face recognition, detection, or identification systems may not work well with people with conditions such as Down syndrome, cleft palate, or other conditions that result in characteristics with facial differences. Such systems may also fail for people who are blind and may result in a person, or if you're wearing, just like me, if you're wearing glasses, if you're wearing any medical or cosmetic aids, those also have impact on how the systems actually results in the rating of these employees or candidates. In terms of body recognition or gait analysis, how you walk, gait is really how you move and how you ambulate, how you walk. People who have severely restricted motion may be locked out of using certain technologies if body recognition is the only permitted interaction or method of assessment. For speech, many automatic speech recognition systems do not work for some older adults. due to differences in pitch, pacing, clarity of speech, or by people of, or like I said, people who have accents, or including the deaf accent as well. You might, if you are using Siri or any of the home assistant systems, you might have already experienced some of this in your day-to-day work. It also, these algorithms in terms of anomaly detection, they flag this out, they flag these people with disabilities as outliers, which typically reserves, which typically the next step is then for punitive action. So if you're a person with disability, you're not normal, you're in the outlier, you're in the margins of the distribution of the model, and you will be punished for it. And in this case, when we're talking about recruitment, regardless of, again, your experience, your education, your knowledge, you will probably lose your chance for employment as well. And in terms of scene recognition, again, this might not be relevant for recruitment per se, although you might be using it on your employers for like camera surveillance systems and camera analysis. Especially when it comes to scene recognition, these systems for autonomous vehicles may not recognize the wheelchairs, mobility devices, or direction if you're not ambulating, if you're not walking as a typical person. They might not even recognize that you have a disability. And as these autonomous vehicles and systems are becoming more prevalent in certain areas, it might result in a vehicle to crash into you because it doesn't recognize you as a person. So across all the systems, the way it usually works is clone what you have. You use your current employee data to tailor and customize the algorithm. So you provide the data, or you ask your employees, current employees, to take the systems, go through those systems, and then you apply that model that is built on your current employees to your candidates. However, if you're not very diligent about who is deemed successful in the data set and according to which criteria, then you might not end up with, you might end up with more of the same, which might not necessarily be the best. So this was right after the elections in the US. The left side of that picture, black and white picture, is the vice presidents, the 45 vice presidents that the US had. Consider that data set. If you're looking at that data set, consider that your current employees. If it looks like that, there is no way that the models, these AI systems, are going to suggest or predict a future with a female, with a person of color, with someone with disabilities. So you need to pay extra attention of what you're cloning and what you already have in your organization. You might eventually end up with having your organization and employees bound in an echo chamber. So everyone agrees on the same things. You're not able to bring in innovation or bring in new perspectives because you've cloned the same and the same and the same with these systems. It might be faster, it might be cheaper, but it's not better. So make sure, and like I said at the very beginning, as you're bringing in these systems, make sure that these are properly done through due diligence. And when you're moving fast and breaking things, it might not be what you intended. So I would suggest that be more careful. And if you don't have the capabilities internally, if you don't have the talent to do due diligence, training, etc., ask for external help as well. And I'm always happy to connect with those on the call if you would like to network further. And thank you for today. Happy to take any questions if you like.